And that is recording.
Yes, it is.
Awesome. Yay. So, hi, friends. Today we have Nick, which I'm super excited to talk to. He's an educator and an advocate for healthy relationships, more specifically, secure attachment. He has a page on Instagram where you talk all about literally secure attachment. And I know, at least for me, it's been super helpful and I've learned a lot from it. So I thought my listeners would love it as well. So to really get started, I think it's easiest to start from the beginning. So what are the attachment styles? What is attachment? Just like your idea, your opinion of all that.
Cool. First of all, thank you for having me. Very happy to be here. I love always talking about this. Something that is always good to bring awareness on, because not a lot of people are aware that these things play out and they pretty much control your behavior in relationships. So attachment styles. Best way to explain this is when we were cavemen back in the days when we were becoming the human beings we are today.
Mm-hmm.
He associated the ability to attach to other people with survival, because if a puma is attacking you, it's way more likely that you're going to survive with 10 other people around you than if you're alone.
Yeah.
So the association that we had with everybody else became the approval and the ability for us to connect with people was literally tied down to how we can survive. That impacted our survival a lot. And so I guess there's two big theories from what I understand in this. Is that there's one that explains more in the genetic standpoint. There's a couple people that have certain genetic probability of having certain attachment style, and then the conditioning that they have in their childhood kind of brings that out. And there's another theory that kind of just says that conditioning does it all, and we're kind of in a blank slate. That's a debate that's always going to be present, at least so far in human history. We don't know if we're right or not. I tend to think that the genetic does have a play in it. I think that we do have the genetic tendency to have more attachment style or another. 4 different ones that are usually I like to, they're not really in a quadrant. I like to explain them in a spectrum, going from most anxious to most avoidant. Anxious, preoccupied; fearful, avoidant, which is disorganized attachment style; the dismissive, avoidant; and the secure attachment. So one end of the spectrum you have the anxious, the other end of the spectrum you have the dismissive, and the other one's kind of flip-flop in between, secure being right in the middle. And the fearful avoidant is actually funny because it's the opposite of the secure. It kind of flip-flops from both. All anxious or all avoidant, and never in the middle. Obviously, the middle is where you want to be. That's where you're most balanced. That's where you have the most emotional regulation, the most emotional literacy. That's when you understand people the most. And that's ideally where you want to be, is right here, as in balance, right? Anxious, preoccupied people are always at the very end of the spectrum. And then dismissive avoidance are on the very independent end of the spectrum. That's pretty much how attachment theory was created and formed and understood to this day.
Interesting. I like that you do a spectrum versus like categorizing them and separating all of them, because I think through a lot of people, we find ourselves not one or the other, but we have tendencies that flow in between all of them. Like sometimes I'm like, oh, I'm being super secure right now. Like this is, I'm being healthy. I'm so proud. And then there's other times where I'm like, anxious attachment, I need love, I need affection, like I'm all the way over there. So I think it's cool that like there is a spectrum and it's not like one or the other. It's not very black and white. There is a lot of
the idea of the spectrum is actually what created the disorganized attachment style, because up until I think it was late 2000s, they didn't really recognize the disorganized as an actual attachment style because they don't have an attachment strategy. So they kind of just like flip-flop from both. And if you think of them in like little boxes as in behavioral, like if you categorize these attachment styles into boxes, the fearful avoidant doesn't exist because it doesn't belong anywhere. Right. So the view of the spectrum is very important to understand, specifically if you are part of the fearful avoidant.
Oh yeah, for sure. I love that though. I love the spectrum. And I love that we keep growing too. Like it's not like we're staying stuck in the mindset of 1900 findings psychologically, like we're still evolving. But I obviously want to ask you, what brought you into this world of learning about attachment styles? So what was your journey like getting to this place? And what was your moment of like, I need to do a deep dive into this topic?
Yeah, so this is a very interesting story because, and I always say this, that humans, we're people that we're species that are difficult to learn things. And we learn things, we're most motivated to learn and change when we're trying to avoid pain. So that's usually what brings people into the awareness of attachment theory. It's a painful experience, more often than not, with a romantic relationship. So I'm 21 years old now. I started
Mm-hmm.
dating when I was 13 years old.
Mm-hmm.
I
Big
had
deal.
just, yeah, I know. I had just moved to America, and it was in 8th grade, middle school. And it was a very long relationship for that time period that we stayed together for 2.5 years,
Wow.
from 8th grade until the beginning of junior year of high school.
Damn.
Yeah,
Oh,
I know, right? And
oh,
I remember that first we got together. It was like April-ish. It was right before summer, right before the school year ended. And I remember that summer there were a couple of like birthday parties, whatever pool party things that people like
mhm.
in middle school is just like playing around with toys and stuff like that. It's with pizza. It's pretty fun.
Yeah.
And I remember that I always heard about like the annoying boyfriend that didn't let his girlfriend do what she wanted. So I was like, okay, I'm not gonna do that. I think I want to be a cool guy. Let her do what she wants.
Mm.
So she told me, oh, Nick, I have a birthday party to go to this weekend. It's my friend, her birthday. I'm like, okay, it's in the pool. I'm like, oh, cool, go ahead, do whatever you want. She starts posting a couple things on Snapchat about the party. The moment I see her story, my heart goes to my stomach.
Oh.
I feel like my hands and my feet get cold and numb. My chest
Oh.
gets warm, my belly gets warm, and I start to like panic. I start
Oh.
calling her like, what's going on? Like this, I got really, really jealous and really emotional. I was like, this is crazy. I can't believe this is happening. And that was probably my first experience with like almost like a panic attack, you know?
Mhm.
And that was my attachment system being activated. I'm sorry. That was my attachment system being activated. Basically what was happening at that point is that my brain was thinking that because she is meeting the needs of other people and having fun with them in the party, she wasn't
Mhm.
going to be available to meet my needs. And so
Mm.
I need to go on that, meaning I would die, meaning the puma was going to eat me.
Yes.
So that was the very first experience of like, there is something wrong here. That entire relationship was like a conglomerate of trauma. It was like I was literally like living out of survival at that point, like for the whole two
Oh.
years. And it was really painful. It was awful. It was
Oh,
terrible.
I'm
Eventually, it came to an
sorry.
end. Not in a great way. Not very a very proud moment of my life. But that wasn't even when I started learning about that. At that point I knew there was something wrong. So I tried to stay away from relationships as much as I could for a good like
Mhm.
2 years. Just because I didn't know where to start or if there was even a name for it. I just thought there was something wrong with me, basically.
Mhm.
And then I had another girlfriend from 18 to now, just till summer, which was again very crazy and turmoilish. We were on
Mhm.
this whole time, like multiple times.
Oh yeah.
And this is the one that actually pushed me to say, like, okay, there's something going on here. And this is when obviously I had a lot more maturity in terms of I know where I can go to find answers to my problems.
Mhm.
So I started like
Mhm.
literally Googling, why am I feeling this way? Why, when
Mhm.
my partner does this, I feel this? And it's like, pull on a thread, you start getting the
Oh
rest of
yeah.
the information.
Yeah.
And so then this was right after COVID. This was summer 2020. I finally learned that attachment theory was a thing, what it was, what I just explained, right now.
Yeah.
And then I learned that I was an anxiously attached person, and pretty anxiously attached person, probably from growing up in a codependent household.
Mhm.
You inherit your parents' emotional processing. And if
Yeah.
they don't have good enough emotional processing, you also won't have good enough emotional processing.
Yeah.
And so the book that introduced me to it, which I do recommend reading this book, but I don't think it's complete enough because it's a little bit outdated already, but it's attached. That's usually the book that a lot of people read. Yeah.
Mhm. Gonna go buy that.
Yeah. And it was great. It didn't give me all the answers, but it gave me a good solid base as to why I was feeling what I was feeling and
Yeah.
where I should start healing. And
Mhm.
that was the beginning of the journey of healing. Was only in 2020 after 4 years of the first relationship.
Damn. Well, I commend you for that. That's awesome that you even decided to look inward and think, what is going on? What is actually going on? What's the root of the problem? And one of my favorite things about all of this is that you are like self-educated, like you put yourself out there and you tried to learn all of it. And something that I thought about like a few days ago, literally envisioning this interview was there's so many people that have like knowledge, like they went out and they went to school and they did they checked the boxes, you know. So they have a lot of knowledge, but when you experience something and you understand it deeply, you have like this different level of like wisdom where you can apply it. You know, it's not like a doctor going to school and telling you all the things they have to do, but they don't live by that because they're not experiencing it.
Yeah.
It's like I love hearing from you how all of this impacted you, and just hearing all the wisdom that you have, because that is so much more impactful to me anyway, rather than, hearing it from a textbook and hearing that this is this and this is that, but like feeling that like you went
It's
through it
real.
to get
It's
here.
like it's real. Yeah,
Yeah.
it actually
Yeah.
happened. It's not like in a text. There's not words in a textbook.
Yeah, so I love that, and I commend you for that. I just got the
Thank you.
notification for our interview. Oops. So would you classify yourself now more towards securely attached? I know you said you were anxious. So where do you think you fall right now on the spectrum, or are you still kind of like wishy-washy?
So the way that you would ideally classify where you are on the spectrum is the amount of core wounds that you have and how much they impact your life.
Mm.
So, and then we'll get to core wounds later, what they mean and what they are.
Mhm.
But basically, the more core wounds you heal, to the degree that they are rebalanced in your neurochemistry, the chemicals that you release in your brain when you get activated, is the amount that you're going to heal. So I'd say and you know what the Pareto's principle is?
I don't.
So that pretty much states that 80% of or 20% of the gains come from 80% of the work, or vice
Oh,
versa.
okay. I've
Yeah.
seen that a lot, but I guess I didn't know like the proper name for it.
So 80% of my healing happened in 20% of the time. So I'd say I'm pretty balanced in terms of in terms of almost being fully secure. It's just that last 20% is going to be done in the last 80% of my healing journey. I mean, so it's like that little bit extra inch to become fully secure is the hardest to come by.
Yes.
So
Oh yeah.
the more core wounds you have, and the more you are polarized in the spectrum, the easier it is for you to bring yourself to a more balanced place. But once you get there, that becomes harder.
Yeah.
So I'd say I'm a good like 70 to 80%, secure right now.
I love that. Something I was thinking about was once you enter the world of like healing or learning about a topic, whether it's related to yourself or external, it's like once you actually are genuinely interested in it, you start opening all these doors and you think like, oh, I know what attachment theory is. And then you open the door and you're like, shit, there's four. And then you keep going. And there's just so many layers and layers and layers. Yep. So even when you think like, oh, I'm anxiously attached when my partner goes to parties, but everything else I'm fine with. And then you're introduced to a whole new world of your partner going on vacation with, even their family, and feeling insecure. And then you're like, shit, there's another layer I have to heal. So to me, I just envision it as like walking into a door of healing, and then the doors just keep going and going and going, and you're just opening new.
Try to learn attachment theory, and out of nowhere, I'm learning about subconscious reprogramming. And how did I get here?
Yeah. Seriously. And I know you talked about your family a little bit and like the codependency in your household. So if you're comfortable, I would love to hear more about that, because I think so much of our romantic styles, whether it's attachment or just like how we love, comes from, what we've seen and what we've experienced and the place that we held in our parents' lives. So I would love to hear about just like how all of that impacted your attachment style.
Yeah. So I think obviously being a guy, you always mirror your you tend to mirror your emotional processing more in your dad than your mom, just because he tends to be your first and only role model in between the ages of 1 and 5. And so I know now, analyzing my parents' behavior, that my dad is very anxiously attached to us, to his family. And so I learned that the people that my theories is that I learned that the way to love people is to be anxiously attached to them, just like he is. And so the people that I end up loving, I end up being anxiously attached to them. And this is interesting because I actually have a dismissive avoidant relationship with my parents, which is very interesting. Yeah.
Okay.
That makes sense because they polarize each other. So usually an anxiously attached person is going to be attracted to a more avoidant individual, and vice versa, because sound familiar?
You're looking at me.
And that's because they complement each other's subconscious comfort zones. So the way you're attracted to someone is you admire certain traits in them that you repress yourself. Yeah. I know, right? And
is this an interview or is this therapy?
And so because of that reason, they tend to attract each other, and they tend to polarize each other even more. So by my dad having an anxious relationship with us, I became very dismissive, avoidant with them. That makes
Mm,
sense.
yeah.
And so I think that's pretty much what created that obviously being anxious attached to your family creates more of a codependent relationship with your family, because you would think that they would do things for you to be happy as opposed to themselves to be happy. It's like it's very overgiving of yourself. It's not really authentic to who you are. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
and so I think that accustomed me to not only having an anxious attachment to the people that I love, but also operate from a place of being okay with too much of myself to make sure that person loves me, and also meeting my needs through that person.
Wow. That
Yeah,
was really good. And that made me think obviously about my life. I think it's interesting when someone is dependent on you, especially like a parent for like maybe their happiness or their feelings in general.
yeah,
Um, which is it's a beautiful thing to be loved for and cared so deeply for, but it does add a little bit of like guilt or pressure or just like that. I don't even want to say burden because it's that's like painful, but sometimes it can feel like a lot. Like you need
yeah.
to show up so much. You have to be this specific version because you know that someone else's happiness depends on you so heavily. And I think a lot of people can relate to that. So
And it's tough
yeah.
juggling that, because it's even in your adult life, obviously, like, it's hard to present this information to someone that has been living like that for so long. And I don't
Mhm.
think he even realizes that that's a thing anymore. And obviously he's well into his 60s now, so it's hard still having to juggle that in your adult life with the person that has, that parent to kid dynamic. At some time,
Mhm.
it's hard to balance, especially in the phase of life that I am now, because I'm transitioning from the point of um, what is it, having a master server relationship with your parents to more of a
Mhm.
balance where you're both in the equal playing field. And I
Yeah.
think he's having a hard time adjusting with that. Specifically, my dad. My mom is way more secure and way more okay, and she already understands that way more. My dad still needs a
Mhm.
little bit of time, and that's my opinion, partially because of the anxiously attachment to us.
Wow.
Yeah.
You're so good. You're so good.
Thank
I
you.
love all of this. So what have you learned both good and maybe not so good from each of your parents when it comes to romantic relationships, even if it's not like attachment style? Like what have they taught you maybe what to do and maybe what not to do just by observing them?
Yeah. I think for my dad mostly, is that he's very hardworking and he will do whatever it takes to get the job done. I think that's a very good
Mhm.
trait, specifically for a man to have in a relationship, because I think, in my opinion, the man should always be able to provide what his family needs, no matter the
Mhm.
circumstance. He should have the ability to work more or less, no matter what the situation requires of him, right?
Mhm.
And from my mom, I'd say what I learned is that she's very happy alone. She's very happy being independent. She doesn't
Mhm.
have a lot of friends, but despite that fact, she tends to do whatever she wants whenever she wants. I think that's great. She
Mhm.
has a very negative view of relationships. She
Mhm.
is very likely to think that they're going to fail, but
Mhm.
that's because of her own past and because of her own what she has lived through before.
Mhm.
Right now, she's at a very secure point. She just tends. My mom is very distrusting. That's what it is.
Mhm.
I try
Mhm.
not to bring too much into that, because I think I always try to come from a position of innocent until proven guilty,
Mhm.
which
Yeah.
I think it's more fair than the opposite. And then for my dad, obviously, what I don't like is the um,
Yeah.
codependent tendencies. Yeah, that
Yeah.
also, by the way, come from mostly his side of the family. I've noticed it's
Mhm.
his siblings are the same way. My grandma is the same way when with my grandpa. So
Yeah. It's such an interesting experience to be an adult and then analyze your parents and kind of dissect their childhood a little bit and be like, oh, that's why you do this, this, and this, because grandma and grandpa did this, this, and this.
yep,
And you just start to understand why they are the way they are and just understanding their family dynamic because we are their family, but they also grew up around a whole different family. They had an entirely different experience. So I think it's kind of fun in a way.
oh yeah,
And I think there comes a point of just like a little bit of detachment, like your mother being distrusting. I think I've definitely been raised of having the mindset of you don't trust anyone, you got to do everything for yourself. The only one that's going to have your back is you. And just recognizing, okay, that's your experience, that's your projection, that's you trying to help me. And I respect that and thank you, but I am an adult and I'm allowed to form my own opinion now. Just like taking a second to step back and detach from, okay, that's your thought because of your experiences, and I honor that, I see that, I respect it, but not allowing it to come into my bubble. That's your bubble, and it could stay there, and you could tell me not to trust anyone ever in my life, but I have my bubble, and I'm an adult now, and I can decide for myself.
Have you heard of the reticular activating system?
No.
No, it's the long name for RAS. It's pretty much the lenses through which our brains process the world based on our experience. So our brain is always trying to make associations in between what's happening now and what has happened in the past, because again, survival, the more you know what's coming, the more you know what's predictable, the higher the chances of you surviving. By the way, this is why humans are afraid of the dark, because you can't see what's coming.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
I like that little fun fact.
Yeah. And so by you knowing this, it's that already changes your whole perspective on it, because it's like someone else's experience may not necessarily, and by the way, probably will not be the same as yours, just because their reticular activating system is based off of their programming, with their genetics, with their childhood, with their parents, not yours.
Yeah.
Also, why other people don't love you the same. People show, express, and receive love in very different ways, and love doesn't always look the same. That's why I hate when people tell me, oh, she didn't really love you, or he didn't really love you, or your boyfriend never really loved you. It's like, how would you know? They're not experiencing the love that they can give and receive.
Yeah. It's hard to put that judgment lens on and say what's best for someone else, or who. Yeah. That's like a whole rabbit hole. I don't know where I had a question and I don't know where it went. If it comes back to me, then I will ask you again.
Okay. All right. But, sorry, I didn't cut you off.
No, it's okay. No, I like the little rants. They're full of passion. I like feel your energy from here, and I love it. But I wanted to ask what practices that you implement daily, if you implement any at all, to kind of keep you on track, because at least from my experience, I know that once I start to commit to healing something, I'm like full on go. Like, I need to implement this into my everyday life, or I'm going to maybe slip back into some bad habits. Like when I decided to try to combat trust issues, it was like every chance I get, I need to work on this, which slightly unhealthy, which is okay. I recognize it. But yeah, what do you have any practices that you do, or any tips for people in reaching secure attachment?
Oh yeah. So also, just so you know, whenever whenever you have that mentality of all or nothing, that's usually an indication of more trauma than not. The black and white behavior is it's an illusion. Is that a word? Illusion.
Yeah.
So,
that's
the
imbalance
mentality.
of
Yeah, that's the mentality that we don't want to have when we go into attachment theory. It's because that's, again, and that's very hard to do, because your subconscious strategy is literally to go all or nothing on everything.
It literally is a trauma response, because sorry to cut you off, because I do recognize in me feeling like if I don't fix this right now, and if I'm not the best I can be right now, I'm going to be left. And I recognize that that's like a trauma response, and being in a relationship where someone's like, okay, you're safe, I'm not going to leave you if you mess up next time, I know you're working on it, is very helpful. But at least for me, I'm like, if I don't change right now, I'm going to be left, because I'm not going to be up to their standard.
And listen, if that makes you get the work done, leverage it. Like, I'd rather you do that and get the work done, leverage on it and get the work done, than the opposite, which is do nothing about it. Like in the beginning, that's better than not, It's just that you always want to try to bring yourself back to a place of center as much as you can, because that's when you integrate it into your life. It's just like going to the gym. It's like, are you gonna go to the gym 7 days a week, or for like 2 weeks and then never go again? Or do you rather space those 7 sessions out into 3 months? Obviously, the 3-month option is a lot better,
Yeah,
and so,
but in that situation, I've also gone too hard in that way too.
Correct.
It's a theme in my life. But enough about that. Let's hear about your fun stuff, not my trauma.
Cool. So when I started, I also made the same mistake. I was going through one of the breakups with my very recent ex-girlfriend, and I was like, okay, well, I have all this, sorry for the word, this shit that I don't want to deal with, that I probably have to fix. And then, well, let's do as much as I can with the time that I have right now. And so I actually enrolled in a course online by probably the person that has taught me the most, that has changed my life the most, with attachment theory. Her name is Thais Gibson. She is the owner of a course online on the YouTube channel called Personal Development School. Probably the best source of information for attachment theory, emotional healing, parenting, relationships out there ever. She has broken down everything that has happened to me. It's like she was talking to me without knowing who I was. She broke it down specifically everything that happened. I was like, you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
Going to school, I did a couple of the courses. In the first 3 months, I did like 4 courses, and I was like, okay, I'm going too crazy with this, and I started getting a little bit crazy with it. So that's when I thought, okay, this is a trauma response. I need to like integrate this into my life. So now since then, this was about a year and a half ago, I just kind of try to space out as many courses as I can, and I go through her courses. Some examples are courses about boundary setting, some courses about meeting your own needs, courses about how to heal from a codependent household. Shadow work is the one that I'm doing right now, which is very interesting. Love shadow work so far. So good. It's just like for me, for daily practices, it's not, I wouldn't necessarily call it daily, but they're very reoccurring, at least 2 to 3 times a week. I sit down, go over her videos, do her notebook. And a lot of people, I like to talk about this too, because a lot of people think that when they hear do the work, they think you have to sit in the mountain with, a haze and meditate and have a conversation with God in your mind. It's like doing the work is literally sitting down, sit your butt down in the chair, pick up a pen or a paper and write down the prompts that are given to you.
Yeah,
that's
you literally do the work.
Right. It's like a schoolwork. You literally sit down and answer questions. And that's literally how you heal from any emotional trauma ever. And the reason for that is because when you write stuff down, it helps you process. It makes you process information faster and better. And so, which by the way is probably why you should do it writing in your hand, not necessarily typing. The hand is a lot better. And so I do that every so often. I'm a night owl. I like staying up till late. So we catch this 21-year-old, 190-pound kid sitting in his room, bawling his eyes out at 3 a.m. on a weekly basis, trying to figure out life.
But that's healing.
That's what it's. And do that for long enough, and it comes at you quick. The changes, man. I'll tell you that. Like, whoa! I'm happy that I'm able to integrate this into my life now.
I'm so happy you talked about the journaling stuff and talking about doing it by hand, because I feel the same way. It's like disgusting the amount of journals I have, like maybe a little too many, because I like to section them all out for different things, because I don't like to, I'm like weird and whatever. I'm like, I don't want to mix the energy of like my negative thoughts with my gratitude journal. So I always have them differently, which is silly, but whatever. But I love that you talked about like literally writing it out. I think there is the brain and hand connection when you're like writing something out. And I think you pour so much of yourself onto like a notebook and onto a paper versus sitting there and like, what do I write? Because sometimes if you take your mind out of the equation and you just let your hand go and start writing, there's so much that you're going to learn about yourself, about a situation that you didn't even think about. Because the second you like take a second to let your mind pass by, let the thoughts go, and you're just there with your journal, you're going to learn so much. So I love that you talked about like using a real old school journal, pen to paper.
You write slower than you think. So it forces, when you're writing, it forces you to slow down your thoughts, you slow down the emotional imprint that comes with your thoughts, understand them, process them, put them into words, which is huge, so you can write it down. Words communication is that's how we expose to the world what is inside our head, what is inside our heart, right? And so being able to effectively know what's going on and be able to put it into words to tell other people, that's what's going to build your relationships, that's what's going to make you money, that's what's going to get you that job. It literally creates everything in your life. And by you journaling, that you practice that over and over and over again, you're going to get pretty good at it.
I love it. I love journaling.
Awesome.
So now I want to switch into like less personal, because obviously we did a quick deep dive on trauma. I'm sure they'll come up again. But how do you think society has helped shape the attachment styles in like the modern day life? Talking about social media, the impact of seeing other people's relationships, just all of it.
Yeah, that's huge too. I think so. I actually I think social media is since the early 2000s, basically when we started connecting online, and obviously the gradual progression until then, it pretty much it made the dating market worldwide as opposed to like local, which is huge because now there is competition amongst people all over the world for the same partners. And
Yeah.
you know, there's always going to be the top 10% of people that everyone's going to be attracted to, and now everyone has access to them. And that's a problem because that makes you less appreciative of the people that are local to you, that could also be amazing partners, just maybe in different ways or in less exposable ways, that you probably need to take a little bit more time to learn and understand by, you know, connecting with them personally as opposed to apps. You know? And so I think that's a big issue nowadays, that everyone is chasing the same top 10% attractive people just because they can. And, yep, not necessarily the people that can give them a good relationship regardless, that are local to them. And this doesn't necessarily mean that the person that you are going to connect with is going to be like a difference between like Florida and California. It doesn't have necessarily have to be that far away. It can be like someone in the town nearby that you probably wouldn't have met if you didn't follow them on Instagram. You know what I mean? It's not. These things play a huge role in who we decide to, you know, end up with. I also think that since I think the best way to create an emotionally healthy family and avoid that cycle of codependency is to take time to understand who people are deep down as opposed to just superficially. And I think that has become way less likely, and you see that way less nowadays. You know, people just kind of stumble and fall into relationships and start things without really understanding why, how, and when. And I think that has created a lot of emotionally unhealthy families.
Definitely. I could go on a whole, I'm sure we both can go on a whole rant about social media, the pros and the cons. But I do think in relationships, it's caused a new layer to worry about that once never existed. Like now always worrying, what's my partner doing on their phone? Who are they talking to? What's like now there's Twitter, there's Instagram, there's Snapchat, there's fucking TikTok, there's everything. And there's so much more to, if you are an anxiously attached person, to worry about.
Oh, yeah.
Like there's so much more to worry about. And there's also the fear of if I do something wrong, are they going to go on Instagram and go like everyone's pictures? That may be like a very immature mindset, but I'm sure a lot of people that are anxiously attached could easily have that. And I know that a lot of people, I'm sure, use that are in unhealthy relationships, use that as a tool to maybe get under the skin of their partner. I know I've had people.
Well, you may think it's silly, you know, but what you have to break it down as to like what that means. That means that the person that is doing that to the anxiously attached person, they're exercising their power to have more options. Like you think it's just likes on an Instagram post, but you have to really understand, what does that even mean? It's just power. It's like, hey, I have all these options of all these people that I can date if you don't behave. And it's like that becomes like a blackmailing power dynamic inside your own relationship. You know, that's not healthy.
Yes. No, I get it. And I've definitely been in that place, not on the receiving end of like, oh, I got it all. I could, you know, I get whoever I want and I'm choosing you. Like, you should be grateful. Like, ew, gross, whatever. But it's still like just another thing that our parents didn't even have to worry about. They wouldn't even think about that. I guess maybe as they got older, obviously, it was integrated into their lives, but it's just something that I don't think we've had enough time yet with to learn how to like maneuver through it. Like there's not enough time that we've spent analyzing relationships and social media because it hasn't been around long enough for us to be like, oh, this is how we should handle it.
Yeah.
We could kind of guess and figure it out ourselves, but it is like a tricky tricky path
You
to
know,
walk along.
I saw this statistic the other day that I don't know the exact number, but I think it was way over like the 70% or 80% of divorces that have the word Facebook or Instagram written on the clause.
Oh boy, oh boy.
Yeah.
Shit.
Isn't that huge?
I'm not surprised.
Yeah.
I think it's also, well, this goes into like a whole different ballgame of, topics, but also I think people continue having anxious attachment even after breakups now because they might be seeing what their ex is posting. Like it's harder to move on when you're allowing yourself to see it. I'm a big person of like, if we're done, like, sorry, but for my mental health, like, I'm never seeing you on social media ever again. I will mute and block you and all your friends, not out of spite, but out of like, this is
Yeah.
safe for me.
That should be the healthy response as well.
Yeah. And I think a lot of people don't. So they have that lingering tie to someone because
Yeah.
because it's accessible. You can see it. So why not just like click on their story a few times? Why not just scroll and see who liked their pictures? And you could just go down a rabbit hole. So I think it also is harder in breakups and moving on and then starting healthier relationships. And again, because relationships are so much easier to obtain almost because you get dumped, what are you gonna do? You're like, it's easy to go on Hinge, to go on Tinder, to go on Bumble.
And get another one.
So yeah, like it's quick to like distract yourself and be like, oh, I'm fine. I'm just gonna meet someone else. And now you're hurting that person
That
because
takes
you're not healed.
I think that takes a lot of your responsibility away. It takes away from you understanding your responsibility as into why you caused the breakup in the first place. It becomes way more likely that you're easier to blame someone else for all the problems. And accountability and taking responsibility are two humongous things into healing any type of emotional wounding, to be honest with you, because you have to take responsibility for something that you didn't do, which is huge. And it's like if you're gonna take responsibility for something you didn't do, you better be good at taking responsibility for the things that you do first.
Yeah, definitely. Since we kind of talked about starting new relationships possibly, how, or I guess what advice would you give to someone who's jumping back into the dating game, and they just want to try to implement healthy tendencies, especially straying away from codependency? What advice would you give to someone? Like, how do you go about that when you're starting a fresh new relationship?
So that's actually the position that I've been in the past like 4 or 5 months. And to be granted, I haven't really been successful, but I haven't really done much either. I've been trying to like just run my business. I haven't really tried dating since then. But when people come to me with that question, I think the best position that you can put yourself to be able to find someone that you're in line with is, number one, know who you are. And when people say that, when people say know who you are, it's like that's very vague. Like how the hell do I even find out who the hell I am? And again, same exact question. You have to. Nobody really. So let me ask you this: how would you get to know somebody in the first like 2 or 3 dates, or for 1 to 2 to 3 dates, 1 through 3? You would ask basic questions like, where did you grow up? What did you do? What do you like? Make a list of all the questions that you would ask someone on the first or second date. Ask them to yourself. Do you want to have kids? Do you not want to have kids? Do you want to live here? Do you not want to live here? Do you want to have pets? Do you not want to have pets? Do you want an apartment? Do you want a condo? So it's really understanding what you like better and why. That's getting to understand yourself. And now when the person asks you those questions, it's not like, oh, I don't care. It doesn't matter. Whatever, I'm good with. It's like, no, I have an option. I have a preference here. And the more preferences you have, the more direct you are. And the more direct you are, the more the more you know where to hone in into the people that are going to be complementary to your life. I think that's step number 1 is knowing who you are. Step number 2 is having good communication skills. That's another no-brainer. And that goes hand in hand with number 1. You can only tell other people what you know about yourself, but it's also having the ability to give them space to learn about them, because that's what love is. Love is teaching other people how you like to be treated over time. And the more you're open to them teaching you the more receptive you are to new information about them, and actually actually let that imprint in your mind, the better I think you'll be able to behave in that relationship. And
Mhm.
obviously, I think step number 3 is just doing things that are in line with your values and your goals. If you know that you want to have kids, for example, don't date someone that doesn't want to have kids. It's like,
Mm,
what I
yeah.
mean? Like, find people that actually want the same things that you want from a
Mhm.
logical, just we want the same thing level.
Yeah. Yeah. I like those 3 steps. That was really good how you broke it down, and all the points were great. I loved how it's giving space for someone to grow and find themselves. I think giving space is one of the best gifts to give someone, and one of the best ways to show up for your partner. And I know that that also helps kind of relieve a codependent relationship, because you're not giving them answers, you're not telling them a direction. You're holding space to listen to them kind of tell you, and as they're telling you like their thought process, they're coming to the conclusion themselves. You're not telling them like, oh no, we have to do it this way, or you need to do this. You're kind of sitting back, asking them really like intriguing questions so that they ask themselves like, shit, I don't know, let me sit and think about it. And just being able to hold space and giving people a second.
Yeah,
I think
it
this
allows you to be authentic, right? And the more authenticity you can bring out of someone, the better. And
mhm,
there's also a certain level of self-identity they have to have as well, because if
mhm,
they don't know who they are, they won't be able to tell you. So that's less on your control, it's more on their control. And if they don't
mhm,
have a good enough level of being able to communicate who they are, I don't think the
mhm.
relationship would work either.
Yeah,
That's way less of your fault and way more of them not being ready for it. And
yeah,
that happens a lot, by the way.
yeah.
It's like one partner is usually ready and the other one isn't.
Mhm. Yep. Definitely. Um, so the opposite side of codependency, at least from my experience, has been complete detachment. Because when I went through a breakup a few years ago, that's when I realized, oh shit, I've been in a codependent relationship. What have I been doing? So then I learned detachment and how to have healthy detachment. But then I took healthy detachment and I turned it into an unhealthy detachment, because I went again from 0 to 100. And I was like, I'm not going to be attached to anyone. And it was almost like a little stone cold, like very
Yeah.
much like, oh, boom. It was like, chop. No, I'm not attached to you. I have no feelings. Nope, don't care. That's your life. I have my life. We're separate. Which again, I know not healthy. It's okay. I definitely worked on it and I definitely took it down a notch. But what advice would you have for someone who does completely detach? Like how do you find that balance? Because
Yeah.
I know for me it was hard.
So I think that there's two types of people that are going to be experiencing that extreme detachment. Number one is a
Mhm,
situation like yours, where you're kind of like doing the polar opposite of what you were shown in the past, just to avoid that
mhm,
pain. And I
yeah,
think for the person, it's a lot easier because you know where both ends of the spectrum are. You just have to integrate both of them, right? And so
mhm,
it's just choosing where you're going to hold space for people, knowing how to choose those situations, and being able to tune into yourself and understand, I don't think I have space. I don't think I have the emotional bandwidth to hold space for you right now. Just
mm,
because I think that would hurt me too much.
mhm,
It's knowing what situations are going to, or what pains are worth feeling for someone else, and that you can
mm,
deal with, and where's your threshold for like, this is too much pain, I can't hold, I can't hold this much suffering and within myself, this is something I have to cut off. I think
yeah,
that's the first person. The second person is the people that are usually dismissive avoidant or fearful avoidant sometimes, that they already have that detached nature within themselves, and that's basically because of core wounds. Core
mhm,
wounds are basically the it's stored emotional associations with previous experiences. The way
mhm,
your subconscious stores information is through imagery. It's not necessarily through words. It doesn't necessarily speak. It just thinks images, and
mhm,
it imprints that into your conscious mind, and it's a protective mechanism to make you survive, because it thinks that if it uses past experiences for present outcomes, there will be a greater likelihood of survival. And
mhm,
so if you have pain stored around those images that you have in your subconscious mind, anything that reminds you of that information will not only cause the pain of the current time, but also of all the painful experiences that you've had associated with that image in the past as well.
e-
So it's like, it's literally stepping on top of a can of paint. it all the
Mhm.
pain comes out, right?
Yeah.
And I also like to make the analogy of like a muscle knot. Every time you move your shoulder, you feel the knot over here in your traps.
Mhm.
Even though the knot wasn't created now, it's been created through years and years and years of you with the wrong posture. Same exact thing.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what a core wound is. Just by you releasing those knots of core wounds in your subconscious mind and working through them through journaling and a lot of subconscious work,
Mhm.
that will relieve them and make the muscles of your subconscious mind work better, more fluid. And I think that you will naturally bring yourself into a place of more balance, because you will be able to handle more emotional stress, because now you
Mhm.
have all those knots stopping you from doing that.
Yeah. So what would you do if you're in a relationship, doesn't matter how long, and you know that something they're doing is triggering a core wound, but you're also not, I don't want to say strong enough, that's like totally the wrong word, but you're just not capable in that moment of separating the two. Like you're feeling your core wound, but you're also feeling very triggered by what your partner did. How would you go about that in dealing with it yourself? Like, what would you recommend?
I think so. Depends. It also really depends on the core wound. If it's a core wound that
Yeah.
activates you, as in it makes you want to get closer to the person, which would be more like an anxious core wound, as opposed to
Mhm.
one of deactivation, which is the one that makes you run away. But I think it's being able to detach your behaviors or your actions from your emotions. Whenever
Mm.
you're able to
Mm.
understand what you're feeling and not act on it, that's where true power is, because that allows you to heal, allows both parties to heal while remaining in the relationship. And to be honest with you, like, anybody can date anybody. I don't think there's a right or wrong person. There's probably a
Mhm.
right and wrong person right now, because both of you are not in a point of complete secure,
Mhm.
the understanding,
Mhm.
because you just don't have these skills required. But anybody can date anybody. It's literally like, how much work are you willing to put to date that person? that,
Yeah.
that's usually the answer. And so I would say do the work, especially when you don't feel like it,
Mhm.
and
Uh,
understand yourself, and hold space to know that, hey, this is probably going to feel pretty bad for a pretty long period of time, but I'm putting faith that you and me can create something that eventually will both feel good, and that we
mm.
can both reach our goals within this environment that we create for each other.
Mm. I like that a lot. It is putting in work, and I think that that's something that scares people. But
Yeah.
I think it's
People
more
don't
of
want to
a
take accountability for their emotions, because
mhm.
it's scary and it's hard, and because they look at this huge pile of dirt that they got to clean up. It's like, this is not worth it. I'm just going to go find someone else. But what they
Yeah.
don't understand is that the half of that pile is within themselves. Like, you're taking half of that with the other person. Good luck
Mhm.
making it work with them. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I think it's more of like a willingness to even work. Like people can put in the work, but it's having a mindset change. I was listening to a podcast and they talked about viewing it as like how, instead of like how much more work or what different work can we do? She always framed it with her partner as how can we be more curious and how can we make this more fun? You make a relationship more fun when it's more loving, more light, more free. And to get to that, you have to do all of the maybe not so fun work, the getting triggered and then working through it with your partner. And it's also the aspect of curiosity. How am I going to be curious with you? How am I going to learn? Like, I think being in a relationship is learning someone else and learning yourself and just choosing to be like, hey, we're little fun buddies during all of this fun, lifetime, however long we're here. And let's just like figure it out together. It doesn't have to be this heavy, like, relationships are work. So many
Yeah.
people see it as like daunting, like, well, I don't want to put in work. If you're not going to put in work in a relationship, then think not all the time, but a lot of times, the main thing people are avoiding is putting work into themselves
Yeah.
because a relationship just highlights the shit you got to work on.
Yeah, that's true. Oh yeah, and it happens to show you exactly what you don't want to see about yourself.
Mhm.
And once you face that, it's like, not now. Leave
Mhm.
it for later.
Yeah.
No, I'll leave it for later. And
Mhm.
life is not margaritas on the beach.
I wish.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. It wouldn't be that fun that way. Maybe a balance. Maybe a balance.
Yeah.
Um, so what would you I know that, like, obviously, if we are in that situation where we're triggered, sometimes we need to self-soothe. What are some of your techniques for self-soothing that you use?
Um, Understand what creates positive emotions strong enough
Mm,
to offset the negative emotions, and what
mm,
actions you can do to create those emotions within yourself by yourself. It's things that
mhm,
you can't necessarily depend on other people to do. So, for let's
mhm,
say, for example, I grew up watching Harry Potter. I'm a 2000s kid. I love Harry Potter.
mhm.
I like getting my bowl of popcorn, warm popcorn. I have sometimes I have a protein shake, or sometimes I have some hot chocolate. Put it in
Uh-huh,
the bed, watch Harry Potter.
uh-huh.
Watch the
I
same
love
movie
it.
over and over again. Because I
Yeah.
know that watching Harry Potter with my popcorn and my hot chocolate is going to create enough of a positive emotion within me that literally no other negative emotion matters anymore, at least for that moment.
Yeah. Shit, I love that. I
Yeah.
love that. It really doesn't have to be such a big task. Like, I know for me, my comfort show, don't drag me, but I'm a Jersey girl, Jersey Shore. I
Oh
love
man.
it. Jersey Shore is like, if I'm feeling any type of like hurt or upset or just like tired and down, if I throw on Jersey Shore, I'm like, yeah, life is okay.
Doesn't
Like, life is
necessarily have. It
pretty good.
doesn't need
So,
to. It can be sometimes. You know what I've done in the past too?
mm,
Drive around with the windows down and my music up.
yeah,
Right.
yeah.
That makes me feel good, and in that moment, I create positive emotions within myself, and it gives me the time and space needed to process whatever I don't, whatever is not making me feel good in the moment.
Mhm. I love that because it creates a balance of not diving too deep into the emotion. I know for a while, like I would feel an emotion and I was so scared to avoid it because I thought I would be suppressing it. So
Yeah.
I would just like sit there and accidentally like torture myself with this feeling. I'm like, why am I feeling it? So what am I going to do? I'm going to journal about it. I'm going to meditate with it. I'm going to cry, which sometimes is great because sometimes we have to face feelings, but sometimes you just need to like feel a little bit of happiness in yourself and just like vibe and watch Harry Potter or Jersey Shore.
That's what
And that's
self-soothing
really
is being able to create within yourself, by yourself, positive emotions.
yeah, I love it. Thank you for sharing all
Oh,
that. I
yeah.
really like that. And then lastly, outside of relationships, how do you think people can, I guess, create a secure attachment feeling inside? Because that could come at least from like observation, jobs, or I don't know, friendships. But how would you how would you go about that?
It's
Securing.
I think it's with the proper allocation of time and energy into 7 areas of life.
Mm,
7 areas of life are I don't think I have them memorized. I think it's spiritual, physical, financial, friendships, romantic relationships. I think I'm missing two. I don't exactly remember, but I can look them up later on
mhm,
my journals and everything. But having a proper balance between all of them and
mhm,
allocating enough energy into all of them equally, or at
mhm,
least in certain time periods, the ones that require you more. It's usually how you create a more holistic balance within your life, and
mhm,
all having that balance is what outside of your operations, inside your romantic relationship, knowing who you are and having direction in all these 7 is what I think that creates a very,
mm.
very secure base for yourself.
Yeah, I like that. I had like a when I fulfill all areas of my life in a day, I'm like, shit, I feel on top of the world. And I had a thought the other day of um a yoga instructor, so I'm obviously like into like chakras and all that stuff. And I was like, I wonder, because all of them do have like a meaning and like your root is your security, your safety. Um, but I was thinking, I wonder if like a day of just I guess fueling the energy of each of them would create harmony in your life. Like if you gave your sacral chakra some creativity, some love, and then your solar plexus some soul nourishing, gifts that you could give, your heart chakra giving love, receiving love, and then your throat singing, yelling, just
Yeah,
breathing loudly, like just really connecting to each of them throughout the day. Would that create an overall just really good day? I think so. I think it
that's something
would.
you see. That system is something you see a lot in like. There's a lot of systems that rule applies. It's your attachment styles as well. You can also apply the same principle to finance. It's like the more you diversify your income, the less likely it is that you're going to go poor, because there's more
Yeah.
flows of money coming into your life, right?
Yeah.
And same thing goes to emotions. But like the more you can separate where your happiness comes from, and I hate that word. I don't think some happiness is a state. But
Yeah.
the more you can separate your positive emotions, the less likely it is that pretty much let's put it this way: the less eggs in the same basket, the better.
Yeah. You're so good. I love this. Definitely gonna need another one. Another
Beautiful.
education.
Yeah, whenever. I
I'm
love talking
learning
about
so much shit right now, and I'm definitely gonna do a deep dive, a balanced deep dive on myself after this. And then the final question, which I love to ask, is if you're in a room full of the entire world, they're all present, they're all paying attention, they want to listen to you, what are you gonna say to them?
tell the truth, especially
Mm.
when you don't feel like it.
Mm.
Be authentic to the best of your ability. Do your best to never lie, not even white lies, not even to 2-year-olds, not even to 1-year-olds. Always tell the truth to the best of your ability, to the level that they can comprehend the truth.
Mm-hmm.
And know yourself. Know what you want. Know a direction. Give yourself a direction, because if the less direction you have in your life, the more likely it is that you're gonna get caught up in things that don't matter and things that are destructive. The less direction you have, the more probability that you do things that are destructive, because you open yourself up to those experiences more.
Yeah.
If you know what doesn't belong, it's more likely you know what does belong.
Mm-hmm. That was beautiful. I love it. So where can people find you if they want to learn more about, I guess, your fitness stuff too?
Yeah.
Guys, you missed the beginning, but he is a fitness coach, correct?
As well, yeah.
Fitness coach, and also has the page on secure attachment. So where can people find you?
At secure attachment on Instagram, at secure attachment _ on Instagram. That's where I talk mostly about the emotional side of things, the emotional healing, secure attachment, how to heal from whatever not secure attachment you have, insecure attachments you have. And then for training for fitness, if anybody wants to start on their fitness journey, I think that's a great place to start to create more balance in your 7 areas of life as well. At NB Performance Training on Instagram as well. And on TikTok at NB Performance, if you're like TikTok. And yeah, that's it. I think this was very productive. I hope people enjoyed, and if people at least learned something. And feel free to always shoot me a DM. I love talking about this. Whoever has any questions, I'll always answer it.
I love it. Thank you so much. I'm going to end the recording, and then I want to stay on and ask you a question after this. But yeah, thank you everyone for listening and for watching if you're watching. See you next time. Let's see how to end the recording, because I can never figure it out. Maybe I'm just going to have to start a new one and ask. Oh, wait, no. Recording, stop recording.